Show, Huge Movie Fanatic Nate, stopping on by, continuing my review of the sequels to Silent Night, Deadly Night. Coming at you now to review Silent Night, Deadly Night 3, Better Watch Out. This is the original VHS that was released in, I don't know, it's saying 1989, International Video Entertainment Incorporated, also known as IVE. Before they would add the L to it, like a year later or something like that, to become live. But the VHS, I think, is absolutely fantastic, just like the Part 2 cover, well, and the Part 1 cover as well, but absolutely fantastic artwork with the tagline here, "When your nightmare ends, the real terror begins." And, you know, having seen this cover, it's kind of, I mean, at the time I didn't know, but, well, I don't know. It's kind of, it was intriguing to see like a picture of a girl on the cover, or whatever, at the time. And of course this movie takes place in California, so that, you know, the icicles are, you know, not respective of how the movie really is, because it's a California Christmas. There's the spine of Bill Moseley as Ricky, and then I always thought the back of the cover was pretty cool too. You can see they kind of make a point to cut off his bubble brain there on Ricky, but you got Robert Culp, who makes an actual kind of more or less of a star, who makes a kind of his Donald Pleasence appearance in this movie, if you will. And then later on, sometime along the line, Lionsgate would actually release, which is kind of really cool, release the sequels, the 3, 4, and 5 on a 3-pack DVD collection. So I've got, you know, I didn't actually, when I revisited these movies, these 3, 4, and 5, I didn't watch the tapes. I watched them on this particular collection, which I would imagine you could still get, which is obviously a collection to have if you're into these movies. So basically, on to my review of Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. Just when you thought, you know, Ricky was dead, this is basically concludes what I would regard as kind of the you know, Billy/Ricky Caldwell trilogy, if you will, although this installment is absolutely just, oh my gosh, you know, it's, yeah, well, let me get into it. Basically, Bill Moseley is playing Ricky now, obviously being shot to shit at the end of the second one. He's no way he's alive. Well, kind of yes, kind of no. He's barely alive. He's in a coma at the beginning of Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. And one of the absolutely laughable movies, it should be said that I don't think this movie, unlike 2, this movie I don't think is really played for laughs. I think it's done more straight and serious. And one of the, you know, the makeups, or the, I don't know, artistic choices about this movie, if you will, that make no sense to follow that, you know, playing it straight, is the detail of basically, you know, Ricky's frickin' bubble brain, what I would call, what I always regard or refer to as Ricky's bubble brain. He's actually got like a frickin', you know, I guess they, you know, he was in probably a coma ever since the end of Part 2, which I think is only like 6 years ago, when this movie, you know, continues or whatever they say, or something like that. So they must have done some kind of brain work on him or some kind of crap. I mean, there's really no reason why, you know, he'd have this bubble brain where basically the top of his head is completely cut off, and, you know, his skull is completely gone and everything like that, and, you know, he's just got some clear glass, you know, thing filled with fluid in top, and he's got, like, I don't know, if antennas and blinking lights and all this crap. I mean, it's just the most laughable thing about this movie, and I don't understand who the hell made that decision to have him have this bubble brain. I don't know if this, I can't imagine this apparatus on his head is something that is even ever done in the medical industry. I hope not. But that, it should be said that that's just one of the most, probably one of the most ridiculous things about this whole movie. The movie starts in a kind of a cool way, and it should be said that the, you know, the beginning of this, or the movie, the idea of this movie is kind of cool. Basically, this girl, who's a really kind of a cute girl in this movie, and really reminds you like a young Jennifer Connelly, and actually, you know, I actually like the majority, if not all, the performers in this movie. I think they really do their parts well, and this girl included, and her brother, and, you know, brother's girlfriend, and just, you know, the Dr. Newberry and his brief appearance with her psychiatrist, and all the people. Grandma, I think Granny's absolutely fantastic in the movie. all the people I think are absolutely fantastic in this movie. The problem is the movie itself is just so uninspired and just stupid. But what I was saying is one of the best things about this movie is the way it begins, where basically this Dr. Newberry is unknown, unbeknownst to her, because this girl is blind. She thinks she's just going in there for dream experimentation or whatever, or some kind of, I don't know why she thinks she's there, but in reality, and I think the Dr. Newberry is keeping this secret, or keeping this secret from her. She's, he's chose her because of her whatever, ESP or whatever psychic abilities or whatever that run in her family, as we see later on when Granny knows the phone's going to ring. Basically, she's been chosen to try to go to sleep and basically in her sleep try to connect with Ricky, who's just in the next room, try to make a connection with Ricky. Now, why this guy has any interest in this, psychopath who dressed up as Santa and went and killed Mother Superior, and has killed other people because he was triggered by the color red, I don't know. There's really no point in why this particular doctor would, I guess, just, have any interest in going through all this trouble to kind of have someone communicate with Ricky or whatever. But that plot point that happens at the very beginning of the movie is actually really kind of cool. Just basically the whole, basically this girl is basically what, meeting Ricky in his mind, in her dreams, or presumably both of their dreams, is kind of what, if I'm to understand this correctly, basically awakens Ricky out of his, 5 or 6 year coma. And basically, she's the one to blame. Well, it's Newberry really who's to blame for basically Ricky's, awakening from the coma and continuing to go on yet another second and final of his, holiday Christmas kill-a-thons, if you will. So, the premise of this movie is really cool. What I probably would have done differently is had Ricky been in a coma the whole movie and had this girl black out and have had Ricky kill through her, would have been much more interesting of an idea, and then she could, wake up and not remember what the hell happened and see, maybe dead bodies at her feet or whatever. But that would have been really cool, and that way Ricky would have been just laying there the whole time and completely innocent. Maybe, who knows, maybe Newberry would have caught on to the fact that she was killing or whatever. Maybe Ricky could have even killed Newberry before, with her body, something. There's so many cool things they could have done if they would have, instead of having Ricky escape in his, Frankenstein monster-ish, walk and just demeanor. Physically, instead of him physically escaping from the hospital, which he ends up doing, which is absolutely ridiculous because he can only walk like a mile a freaking year. That's the speed of his walk. And particularly with the bubble brain and stuff, no one's going to let this guy walk out of the hospital, but whatever. So what I was saying is it would have been much more interesting if they would have just had Laura be the killer. Basically Ricky taking over her mind periodically and her blacking out and killing people through her, which would have been much more cool. But what ends up happening is she basically just, through doing all these experimentations when the movie starts, we don't know how many times they've, her and Ricky have connected or whatever, connected via mind waves or whatever. But in this particular case, at the beginning of the movie, it's enough to basically awaken Ricky from his coma, and basically a drunk, no good guy dressed up as Santa basically wakes him up, basically fully or whatever, is enough stimuli in the room to wake him up, and obviously wearing a Santa outfit and covered in red triggers Ricky once he opens his eyes to then kill him. Should be also said that I think virtually, except for the very end of the movie, except for the killing of Dr. Newberry himself, I think every kill in this movie is off screen, which obviously if you're a fan of slasher movies, you don't really watch them to see kills not even happen on screen. This is the kind of stuff they could get away with in, made for TV movies. As a matter of fact, makes you wonder why this is even rated R, to be honest. There's a pair of, I guess very quick, breast shot in the bathtub scene or whatever, but it's just like, oh my gosh, not a lot of horror movies do this, where it's like basically there's basically only one kill as far as I can tell. If you want to count the first time her brother dies, it's 2 on-screen kills. Of course, he doesn't really die there. He'll die later again, I think. But absolutely ridiculous how this movie has basically no on-screen kills, and it's just most likely them being lazy or the director not wanting to deal with it, or maybe even being opposed to it or something like that, which would be really ironic for guys making a horror movie. But that's the premise of this movie, you know. Dr. Newbury basically has Laura wake Ricky up out of the coma to have Ricky escape. I thought it would have been really cool if Ricky had, you know, not only killed that drunk Santa guy, but also taken his outfit. He could have put the Santa head over the bubble brain. I don't know why they were so opposed, the movie makers so opposed to doing that. I thought that would have been really cool. But Ricky doesn't. He actually somehow, you know, manages to escape the hospital and kills like the receptionist at the front, you know, at the front door, off camera, of course, and somehow manages to hitchhike wearing his hospital robe and the bubble brain fully exposed. He hitchhikes, I don't know how he can drive. Oh well, I guess he's driven in his life before all this crap happened to him, but you know. Poor Bill Moseley must have just, oh my God, just hated this part. It's such a thankless part, because literally the whole Bill Moseley as Ricky is the only thing, well, I guess it's a good thing not to not have to remember lines, but all he does is walk around like a Frankenstein monster, like a much slower version, and just basically says, Laura, every frickin' half hour or so or whatever. And his job really isn't that demanding in this movie, and I would be interesting to actually hear an interview about how he felt about playing this part, but it's absolutely just thankless part where basically Ricky, you know, hitchhikes to Grandma's house because they had a mental connection. Ricky knows where Laura's going. I can't remember why Ricky wants to, you know, it's kind of like a, you know, Halloween 2 Michael and sister bullshit. I don't know why Ricky, I can't remember why Ricky's so keen on following Laura to Granny's. But obviously they, you know, whatever, they've got this connection. Maybe he is hungry for more mind sex or mind interaction, if you will. I don't know, you know, why Ricky, you know, follows or actually gets to Granny's before Laura and her brother, which is really fucking unrealistic. Ricky basically kills the guy who gave him a ride, who, you know, and when he was hitchhiking, and takes his clothes and puts this half-ass, you know, stocking cap over the bubble brain a little bit, and arrives at Granny's before Laura, her brother, and her brother's girlfriend do, and only to have Granny like give this guy, who she presumes is just some homeless vagrant, just some Christmas dinner, and it's only to have, you know, Ricky kill her later on. I can't remember. Obviously, he's probably triggered by something red, which makes him kill Granny. Obviously, off screen. As all the kills are done until the end of this movie. It's kind of ironic that there's a couple scenes where I want to say this is a Roger Corman movie, potentially by the name of The Terror or something like that. It was an early movie that Roger Corman did, and I don't know if it was the 60s or something like that, featuring a young Jack Nicholson. It should be said that this movie is shown at least 2 times in this movie on TV. And it's funny because the best kill in this movie is basically a kill that happens in that movie, where some guy gets attacked on a mountaintop and his eye is pecked out by, you know, crows or something like that and falls off the cliff. I mean, that's the most interesting kill in the movie, and it's not even from this movie. It's a movie playing in the movie. So that's kind of a little bit of ironicness for you about how lame this movie is in its own, you know, self. So as I said earlier, Robert Culp, who's more or less an established actor, who's been in real things and stuff like that, is kind of the Donald Pleasence in this movie, if you will, playing like the detective or whatever that Dr. Newbury hooks up with, and to try to, you know, track Ricky down and solve the case or whatever. And, you know, his scenes are basically just, you know, he's got a really great, strong screen presence, and most of his scenes are just driving, you know, him and Newbury driving to Granny's. And there's this one ridiculous scene where it's just, the whole scene is pretty much about Robert Culp selling not a particular brand but car phones in general. It's almost like a car phone commercial where he's, you know, he's almost trying to sell, he's trying to sell one basically to Dr. Newbury, and he mentions at the end of his little spiel that if he gets $100 off his bill if he signs someone else or gets someone else signed up. And it's just like, it's almost like there was no script and it was just like, they got some actors that could ad lib and it's like, okay, rolling, action, it's just absolutely ridiculous. They'll cut from what's going on at Granny's to, them back to, this detective and the Dr. Newbury on their way to Granny's. I don't know how well, of course, they didn't discover the Granny connection until later, but again, it's just crazy that Ricky managed to get to Granny's before, Laura and brother and his girlfriend, but obviously by the time Laura, brother, and his girlfriend get to Granny's nowhere to be seen. We find out later that she's just hung up or something like that in the basement or something like that. So basically, even though dinner is going and Granny's nowhere to be seen, older brother, and his girlfriend have a time for a little bit of a bath, and it's just, and then later on it's like, wonder where Granny, after the bath and presumably some sex, which obviously didn't happen on camera or whatever, they're just like, I wonder where Granny is or whatever, and it's just like, oh my god, this movie. The movie, it should be said that the movie just moves at just a snail's pace. It's absolutely ridiculous, it's just when he escapes and, we see Granny and then he arrives at Granny's and then we see cut back and forth between Newbury and the cop driving to Granny's, and then we see more stuff at Granny's and then them wondering where Granny is, and then after the bath and looking for Granny for a while, this one, the older brother's girlfriend's leaning against the door, and then like bam, like the fist comes through the door, and it actually looks like he punches a little bit of the side of this girl's face, and it's really kind of creepy because she actually probably got hurt punching through the door, and to try to strangle this girl. It's just like, and what's really crazy about this scene is it's like they completely forgot, or I don't know, I'm assuming it was a stylistic choice, but it looks like they forgot to even put music here, because this whole scene where, it's not a very long scene, but the scene where Ricky, bashes his fist, when something actually is happening on camera, he bashes his fist through the door and is like strangling the brother's girlfriend, and like there's no music, it's just done completely without music, and she grabs a knife or something, the brother stabs his arm with the knife, and he bashes his other arm through the door to take out the knife, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. So I can't even remember, I just rewatched this recently, I can't even remember what the outcome was. I think Ricky just disappears. Yeah, I think Ricky just never comes through the door. I think he just disappears, and at this point they're like, oh, I can't really remember this part of the movie. I think then he goes out, brother finds a shot, his granddad's old shotgun or something like that. I can't even remember what happens after that. They must go outside or something looking for Ricky, and I can't remember. I know that, Ricky basically stabs Laura's older brother, presumably kills him out. I can't remember why the gun didn't work, but Ricky, or Laura's older brother, gets stabbed by Ricky outside. Presumably dead, and then the girls escape back into the house, and I can't remember how, just Laura's brother's girlfriend's just pulled under the bed by Ricky, and another off-screen kill. That's why I can't remember what happens in this movie, because we don't see any of it on screen. And then Laura ends up like in the basement to face off with, it should be said that also, Dr. Newbury, they and the detective pull over so the detective can piss, and Newbury takes off in the detective's car and goes and somehow magically finds Granny's house on his own. He's kind of this thing where he wants to he doesn't want Ricky killed because he's a science experiment for Newbury. So Newbury steals the detective's car while he's pissing on the side of the road and gets there, I think right after he kills. Or is presumed to kill Laura's brother, and then basically it's the same thing that kind of happens in Halloween 5 at the end of the movie, where he's just like trying to talk him down and whatever, and just, Bill Moseley is just stumbling towards him as Frankenstein Ricky Monster, and just stabs him, and it's just in this, again, with like no music. I don't think it's just so just uninspired, just, oh my gosh, I can't even express. So at the end of the movie, there's some scene in the basement where Laura, although she's blind, I guess somehow, she just discovers a corpse and just presumes it's Granny, I guess, or maybe can kind of sense her presence even though she's dead, whatever. then there's this confrontation in the basement with Laura and Ricky, and brother comes back in this absolutely stupid line where he's bubbling through his frickin' fake blood in his mouth, and he goes, "Is it live or is it Memorex?" Like, and he shoots Ricky with the shotgun, and it's just like, what in the fuck? Do they do a slogan for a product for no fucking reason in the movie, unless there's some joke that they, between him and his sister or something that they cut out in a deleted scene or whatever. It's just like, I can't imagine them deleting anything from this movie, otherwise they'd delete the whole movie. But holy Toledo. And then only to have basically after, I think brother gets killed a second time or whatever, presumably for real this time. I can't remember how, strangled probably, because the second time he tried to shoot him didn't work. Oh, I know how. Ricky just jumped on his brother from the sky, came out of the sky, initially outside. That's how he got the jump on him, because I was wondering, why didn't the brother shoot him with the shotgun outside? Well, that's why, because he fell out of the sky and landed right on the brother the first time. So he probably strangles him or something the second time to kill him. And then Laura's left helpless. She's got a broken end of a frickin' broomstick or something that Ricky broke because she was using it as, defense or whatever. So she's got the broken spike of one half of a broken broomstick. She's like, "Come over here, Ricky, here I am." And holds, basically she's laying on the ground. She sticks the broomstick up. He comes over and just falls onto the broomstick. Thing goes all the way through him and he's dead. Like, what in the fuck was that about? I have no idea. Like, it doesn't even look like he tripped. It looks like he deliberately got down and just went, "Bleh!" Like that was his whole goal. That's why he came to Granny's, because he wanted to impale himself on Laura's, broken half of the broomstick. I mean, it's absolutely pitifully ridiculous. Just, oh my gosh. So, in my opinion, out of the first 3 Silent Night, Deadly Nights, this is the absolute worst frickin' one. Strangely enough, there's things I like about it. As I said before, basically all the actors I think are incredibly competent, except for maybe the gas station guy or whatever. But, I like the performers, I like what they bring to the movie. I actually like the really quiet country setting of Granny's house. I think the exteriors are lit really cool with the blue moonlight. I think I think the movie looks okay, looks good, and I don't know why I'm giving it 1 star out of 4 stars, but I will give Silent Night, Deadly Night 3 1 star out of 4 stars, maybe because the idea is, I like the characters, even though as a horror movie and not seeing basically any of the kills, I guess I like the characters somewhat. I like Laura and her brother and her, brother's girlfriend and Granny, and just, I guess, the environment of just the really just quiet Granny's, country house setting. And I don't know, there's things about it that I like, but don't be fooled. This is an absolutely pathetic excuse for a horror movie. What they do with Bill Moseley as Ricky, just like I say, Frank and Ricky or whatever, is absolutely ridiculous, and to be topped off by one of the just most ridiculous things at the end of the movie, where basically Laura's like says "Merry Christmas" or something to the detective or whatever, and then the car, like the ambulance, drives away, and we fade into a half fade of like Bill Moseley as Ricky with the bubble brain in it, like a tuxedo or whatever, and he's like, "And a Happy New Year," and it's just like, oh my, it's almost like Ed Wood returned from the grave and made like, Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. It's absolutely ridiculous, but like I say, I think the performers are, fun to watch. The cinematography, for the most part, is kind of cool. It does have a really cool, Robert Culp breathes a lot of life into the movie, to be honest, and it does have a kind of a quaint, cool feel about it. As I said, as a horror movie, was showing basically none of the kills. It's really lame in that regard, but it's just, the sequels to Silent Night, Deadly Night are just something to behold. I'll tell you, they're just all over the place. Absolutely ridiculous, and as I said, this concludes the kind of, Billy/Ricky Caldwell trilogy, if you will. So I guess that'll pretty much do it for my review of Silent Night, Deadly Night 3. Better watch out, because this movie exists. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll catch you next time.